it's great. It's great to see that there's so much interest, so many people participating. And it's also great to see that there are still people who have the energy in the afternoon to come here shortly before lunch. Yeah, so on the logo you can see the hat. We took the name, it's the Kalpak. It's a Kyrgyz hat. Yeah, this one, it's holding up. So we are named after this company because I just like the hat, and it's an important symbol for Kyrgyzstan. Even in Uzbekistan, you have it in color, Kalpak, black one, and you can see it's smiling. It's a happy Kalpak. And I will talk about expectation management. My company, my wife and my company, it's based in Switzerland. We founded in 2016, so a few years before COVID, and we are specialized on Central Asia. So we do tours only to Central Asia. We bring people from around the world to this part. So Central Asia means the 5 stans, as they call it. Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan. We do different types of tours. We do private tours, FIT. It can be one person, it can be a group of friends, it can be a family, sometimes with little kids. One time we had a family with triplets. They were all about 6 months old, so it was quite an interesting tour around all Central Asia. So anything is possible. We try to make anything possible here in this part of the world. I don't know, it's a picture of me here, it should be about the company. Yeah, our clients, I mean, we are based in Switzerland, but our clients, they are mostly from English-speaking countries. Number 1, it's USA, and then Canada, Australia, UK, in this order. Because we advertise in English, and there's a big English market, and I think there's a big potential in the English-speaking market. Many people there, especially, still don't know anything about Central Asia. I've never heard about these countries. Yeah, maybe just a little story of how I came to Central Asia, how I started this company. The first time I was here in 2010 in Bishkek. I studied international relations in Switzerland, and I was looking for a place to do an exchange semester. And at that time, you might remember, 2010, there was a revolution in Kyrgyzstan, so I saw on TV they were telling about the revolution. I was studying international relations, so I thought it would be politically interesting place to visit. So I looked it up. I never heard about it before. It looked very nice with the mountains, fjords, and there's an American university, so I decided to go there. I asked them, they said, sure, no problem, you can come and study here. I met my wife there, so that's how it all started. It was a really nice time in Kyrgyzstan, and also we did the wedding then in Kyrgyzstan, in a big yacht. And many people from Switzerland, they came to the wedding, and we did a tour together with them around the country. We joined them, we showed them around. Sorry. And everybody was so amazed by Kyrgyzstan. I've never heard about this country before, and about Central Asia in general. So that's when we got this idea of maybe that there's a lot of potential. Also the local people, they really liked. They saw the potential for tourism as well. So that's when we got this idea for the first time to do a tourism business. Because I was not in tourism, my wife was not in tourism. But why not? We gave it a try, we started. First year we traveled around the area ourselves for a full year to see what's there. And then we started, and then it was a good time to start because, as you know, Central Asia was really opening up. And one country after another became visa-free, and there were more and more flight connections. So it's easier and more accessible to travel to Central Asia. And it's really beautiful here. So our best-selling tour, most people that travel with us, they like to do all 5 countries in in one tour combined, because they come from Australia, from US. They're usually retired, so they have a lot of time, a lot of money, so they want to see as much as possible all in one trip. So it's a 5-star tour in 24 days, that's our most popular one. I will talk about expectations and why should we care about the expectations. And we will talk about what people expect of Uzbekistan. I will make it now, since we're in Uzbekistan, I will make it about Uzbekistan, but it will be a similar situation for all of Central Asia. And then we will look at the expectation management. How can we manage their expectations successfully? And hopefully, if we do it well, then we get good customer feedbacks, and I will tell you some takeaways, and in the end we can have a discussion. I don't have too many slides, so we will have enough time for questions and for discussion at the end. So, yeah, so why do we care about the expectations of tourists? Well, at the end, we want happy tourists, because that's good for the business. They will return, they will tell to everybody how beautiful it is, they will bring other people, and they will leave positive reviews about our company, about the destinations. So I think it's really clear that we want tourists to be happy. But what means happy? Like, tourist satisfaction is basically the difference of how they experience the reality versus what they expect. So tourist satisfaction, it doesn't necessarily mean that if the tour is done well, they will be automatically satisfied, because it depends what expectations they had in the first place. Yeah, in Central Asia, unfortunately, many people, they know absolutely nothing about it, so they don't have, so in a way that's good, they don't have much expectations. But of course, we also want them to know about Central Asia. And there are different factors that generate expectations. For example, family members who have been here, friends who have been here, and who are telling about how it was, and based on the way how they tell about it, people will expect the same or something similar. And photos are really important. So, yeah, when you see photos, you expect it to be like this, especially if you see it advertised with certain photos. And also, you know, a past travel experience. Some people have experienced traveling to this region, so they will expect something similar. And again, the good thing about Central Asia is that the region is developing in a positive way. So usually if they have been here 10, 20 years ago, which sometimes happens, and they come here again, they are positively surprised about the changes. And the media. So the media, they do not talk too much about Central Asia, and when they talk about Central Asia, it's not always in a positive way. So some people, they also are scared about traveling to Central Asia, so they have expectation that it could be dangerous. I want to ask you, like, what do you think, what do people expect in the West about Central Asia? Any ideas about Uzbekistan?
Nomads. Nomads.
Nomads? About Uzbekistan? Or?
Uzbekistan. History.
Yeah.
History and adventure.
Culture.
Food.
Yeah.
Even some people, when they travel to Uzbekistan, they think that outside the city, still we have nomads, and people live in the yurts. We have in Uzbekistan wild camels. People commute on these transport, like they use horses, camels. They expect this, but when they come, so they have different.
Yeah, that's a good point. All of these are things that people expect, but again, many people don't know about Central Asia at all. But the people who know, they do a little bit of research. They know a little bit, but mostly they hear about the Silk Road, right? Silk Road is a popular term, and it is what attracts cultural tourists to this part of the world. So the funny story about this, so these people, for example, we did a tour for journalists. These are all journalists, and they expected to see a lot of camels. They wanted to ride camels because they wanted to feel like the traders during the Silk Road. So we arranged it for them, but obviously it's not really what Uzbekistan is about nowadays. You don't see that many camels. So this is an example also of expectations.
They were expecting it in Registan.
Many people don't know that the cities are so developed, and they expect to see donkeys on the streets. So obviously, many people, if they hear about, they've seen this picture, if they hear about Uzbekistan, Registan Square. And they expect this kind of Silk Road cities. They expect spices. Of course, silk, because Silk Road, so many people think it's mostly about silk, which is not really the case, but anyway, they can find beautiful silk in Uzbekistan, for sure. And yes, bluff, food. I don't know, is it Samarkand style?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so this is it. These are just some ideas of what people associate with Uzbekistan from the West. I mean, generally people are amazed by the country, by the history, by the architecture, by the guides as well. They don't expect the guides to be so knowledgeable as they are, because also compared to other Central Asian countries, I mean, you have really good and also long history of guide education here in Uzbekistan. And I mentioned the people. I always hear that the people, they are surprised about how friendly the people are. Because if you travel around the world, in many places nowadays, there are so many tourists that the local people, they don't appreciate the tourists. But here, luckily, this is still not the case. So local people still welcome tourists, and tourists feel welcome, which makes the whole travel experience much more pleasant for the tourists. And they don't expect this modern high-speed trains that we have in Uzbekistan. The Afrosiab train, especially Americans, they are not used to trains at all. They love this train. But there are some misconceptions. For example, the sites that you can see on the photos, on Instagram, everywhere, they always look quite empty, because they look more beautiful when they're empty, obviously. But in reality, as you know, during the season, they are quite crowded, so people are surprised. People always think they are the first ones, because if they talk to their own family, their friends, they are usually the first one who comes here, but they are surprised to find only many other Western tourists here. And there are many mosques, madrasas, mausoleums. I mean, they're all absolutely beautiful, but it also depends on the interests of the people. Not everybody is so interested in history. So for some of them, it might be a bit too much at some point. They might need a break, some nature in between. So again, the point of all this is at the end is to understand their expectations is really important, because that way we can manage it and we can make adjustments and we can explain to them in advance. Also, there is not too much variety of local food. I mean, people always say they want to try, they only want to eat local food, but when you have a 24-day Central Asia tour, the food becomes quite pretty much the same everywhere. The cucumber, tomato salad, the plov is different in different places a bit, but in the end it's still plov.
It's good that you didn't say just plov.
Plov is amazing, but you should create a little bit of variety, yeah, so that's why we try to do that. So in the beginning, when people come, obviously the first meal they want to have is local, but then after a few days they will appreciate something different, which can be, which can also be a good idea to talk about some other ethnicities, to bring them to a Georgian restaurant, which many people have also never tried, or to bring them to a Korean restaurant and talk about the Koreans, how they came to Central Asia, because this is also very interesting for people, or to bring them to a Turkish restaurant. So there are many options actually. It's just important, like, yeah, we will come to this a little more below, about, people always say they want authentic traveling, as authentic as possible. They want local food, they want to stay in local houses, but they don't always understand that that there's a lack of comfort. If you stay in a real local house, the toilet facilities are not that nice, even if you stay there just for lunch. I mean, you need to use the restroom at some point. So there is a bit of a dilemma. You have to choose between comfortable, which is more touristic, and uncomfortable, which is more authentic. So when it comes to accommodations, for example, sometimes people choose more comfortable accommodation, but they prefer to have the authentic experiences during the day. So it's important to discuss with them, to explain to them the situation, because in some other countries, for example, like in Morocco, you have beautiful boutique-style luxury hotels, which are similar to, which are like 5-star standard, but they are small and they are like a local style, local, everything local. But here in Central Asia, when we say boutique hotel, we don't mean luxury, we mean like just the local style. So when people ask for boutique hotels, we also need to try to understand what they mean when they say boutique hotels. And also the road conditions. I mean, there are good roads in some parts, but there are also absolutely terrible roads in other parts. For example, if they want to go to the wait a second. The name of the mountains between Bukhara and Samarkand, next to Aydar Kul.
Nurat.
Nurata, yeah. There's a Nurata mountain range with beautiful villages. People read about it, sometimes they want to visit, but then again, we need to explain to them what it means in terms of accommodation options, comfort, and also the amount of time and the road condition to get there. This is really important, because there's always the alternative to bring them to a village nearby Bukhara, nearby Samarkand, which is also an authentic village experience, but it's closer to the city. They can stay in a nice hotel at night, and the bad road is shorter. Yeah, and then the camels. There are not that many camels as they might expect. Again. And then also when it comes to hotels, in Central Asia, there are many hard beds, hard mattresses. Unfortunately, sometimes the buildings, they look nice, everything looks nice, but then you lay on the bed, and especially for the elderly people, which we have mostly, it's actually a big issue. So it's also important when we select hotels to choose maybe the ones with softer beds, or to find a solution to put some additional layers, something on them to make it a bit softer. And of course to just inform also the people in advance that, so they are at least ready for it. The land border crossings. So when we have combined tours, the land border crossings are also, they are better than they used to be, but they are still a little bit challenging because you have to carry the luggage. You cannot drive through the border, and also it's quite chaotic, and people don't queue that nicely like they do maybe in the UK. So it's a bit, and in summer it's also very hot. And it's also important to just to let people know about this in advance, so they're aware. And another important point is it's good for you to understand where the people are coming from to Uzbekistan, because if they come from Turkmenistan into Uzbekistan, then there are usually not many problems. I mean, they will be very happy. They will especially if they come, for example, from Darvaza. The road, as you know, in Turkmenistan, it's outside of Ashgabat. It's absolutely terrible, probably the worst ones in Central Asia. So, yeah. But if they come from from Tajikistan, from Kyrgyzstan, then it's also important to understand that, because they come from the mountains. They had quite a relaxed time in the mountains. They didn't hear much historic information. So if you just start bombarding them with historic facts and stories, they might be a bit overwhelmed. So you need to slowly get them used to, okay, now it's time for history lessons. Yeah, it's important to also talk with the guides in the other countries to understand condition of the group. Usually it's helpful if they come from another country into Uzbekistan or to a Central Asian country, because you already know a bit of information about them. But it's important to create like a consistent experience, travel experience, not to do something completely different in Uzbekistan than what they had in the other country. Yeah, because they expect something similar. Yeah, so Uzbekistan is developing really fast. There are new hotels every year. The prices increase every year massively. So people come to us. Usually they think about this trip for a long time before they decide to book it. And things change, but they still have the old guidebook in their hands, and they read the guidebook. They expect everything to be as in the guidebook. We had a tourist, he came with a guidebook from 1996, and said, well, I expected things to be the same, because, yeah, the Silk Road is very old, the old towns, the sites are still here, the historic sites. But still there are a lot of differences between 1996 and now. Mostly positive changes, luckily. And many things take longer than expected and communicated. It's important to understand that your Western tourists, they want to know the timings. Timing is so important. They want to understand when will we be at the next toilet stop? When, if the air conditioning is not working in the room and they go to the reception and ask the hotel, they want the hotel to tell them honestly when it will be fixed. The hotel will say, okay, in 1 hour, one guy will come and fix it. But as you know, it will happen on the next. It might happen the next day. And if they will tell it immediately, then you could work with that, find a solution. But telling wrong times and then just keep delaying, it makes it more difficult, and it makes people become really frustrated, unfortunately. And the last thing is also the expectations about the historic sites. So people expect the historic sites to look the way how they used to look. And to see like original tiles, original things. And some restorations are done really well across Central Asia. Some restorations are done, as you know, not that well, and a bit more, a bit too much. Like yeah, so they exaggerate a little. They spend a lot of money on restorations, but sometimes they make it less. In the end, it's less authentic than it's supposed to be, and sometimes people are a bit disappointed about that. And of course, I'm not even mentioning about the fake historic sites, like in Samarkand you have the Eternal City, Usually for Western tourists it's not that interesting because they come here to see, they want to see authentic culture and cities, not feel like in Disneyland. The important point here is that all of these points, they can be very well managed by the way you write itinerary, by the guide, how he talks about it. So they will not affect the overall customer satisfaction negatively in the end. So this is what this lecture is all about. That's why expectation management is so important. It's important to understand where the misconceptions are, what people are expecting, not just thinking that, okay, if I do a good tour, then people will automatically be happy. That's not the case necessarily. So then, let's get into the topic. How can we do that? How can we manage their expectations? Well, first of all, we should know what is the audience. We should know what type of tourists they have. If we work with an international outbound tour operator, we should ask them about. We should check all the itineraries that they have and understand what type of tours they expect. Because usually, if it's an outbound tour operator, they have many returning customers. They come again and again for 10, 20 times, and they expect. Based on their previous travels with the same company, they expect similar experience everywhere in the world. So it's important to understand the clients. And then it's important to think about the itinerary that we want to develop that is tailored to the clients that we have targeted, and it should be tested. I mean, sometimes people come up with really exciting, creative ideas, but nobody has ever done it, and then there are many possible problems with that. So, if nobody has ever done it, then just send somebody to check it out, so we can be sure that it works. Because the itinerary is so important. It's like the contract. It's what people pay for. So they choose the itinerary with the pictures, with the description that is on the itinerary. They read it quite carefully, and then they decide to pay for that. And also, sometimes we cannot guarantee a certain hotel. Most of the times, even, I would say, we just stayed in a hotel on the itinerary, and then we should say that we should mention that it can be a different hotel, but similar one. And when we say similar, it should really be similar in terms of location, in terms of comfort, and everything. And also, don't rely on the itinerary. I don't suggest to put like the local star ratings, because here people put any. It seems to me like people put any amount of stars that they like on the hotels. So it's better. And then people don't understand. If they haven't been here, they don't understand what 4-star, 5-star in Uzbekistan, in Turkmenistan, in Kyrgyzstan, what that means. So it's better to say, if it's a local 4-star, it's better to say it's a 3-star according to Western standards, for example. And most people, they're completely fine with 3-star. They don't expect luxury. They want a clean room, they want a comfortable bed. That's difficult enough to give them, and good location. And if the flight or the train schedule that we suggest, I know the flight schedule, domestic flights, they are announced a couple months in advance sometimes, so we should tell them that it might change. Again, just to let them know, to make sure they are ready for this change. And also about the train, I mean, there are several trains, and so we should just tell them we will take an evening train, or instead of the exact time, if you don't know it for sure. And then we should discuss the itinerary with the client. And we should take time to really discuss carefully. If it's a direct client, with the direct client, if it's a tour operator, international one, we should not just send the itinerary and say take it or leave it. We should explain to them our thoughts behind and possible alternatives, so they feel like they can choose what they want for their clients. And we should think very well about the hotels. Hotels are so important. And the location, the price, the mattress, the room size. So we should also check with our client what is important to their customers, to their travelers when it comes to hotels, and then find the best possible solution and be very honest about the possible issues with these hotels, so they can also tell to the clients in advance. And yeah, and then things are constantly changing. So if we have one itinerary that works very well, we shouldn't just keep doing the same itinerary over and over again. But every year we can reconsider and think about changes, because people are also not stupid. I mean, they all have access to the internet. They check reviews all the time. They check TripAdvisor, Google. So if there's something new, we don't tell them about. You can be sure that the tourists will find out about it anyway.
He will ask GPT.
Sorry?
He will ask Chat GPT.
Yeah, just online. And the photos, like I said, the photos are important, and we should not just we should put beautiful photos, of course, of the sites, but we should also have accurate photos of the accommodations, of the food that they can expect, of the transportation, of the exact vehicle, for example. That can be very helpful for them to understand. And we have to provide a lot of useful travel information to the client, because if it's a tour operator, usually they are sales staff, they don't know that much about Central Asia. So we should give them as much information as we can, written down, about the weather, about packing list, about special rules, about how to behave, everything that is important and specific to this part of the world, we should let them know. And what is also important, that we should make sure we don't just give this information to the client. Well, yeah, mostly it's like a tour operator, mostly here it's B2B business. So if you give the itinerary, all this information to them, they will rewrite it and they will put it on the website with sometimes different pictures, with different descriptions. So it's in our own interest, we should be proactive and check their itinerary, how it's published on their website. Because sometimes the way they write it, because it sounds nice, it maybe sells good, but then it creates wrong expectations. So please do double check how it's being sold and what information the clients get. And if possible, train the sales staff of the clients. If that's not always possible, there's different degrees, but also suggest it proactively to them if you're a local tour operator. And select the right guide. The guide is so important. He makes or breaks the tour experience, and also with regards to the expectation management, as you will see, is super important. So choose a tour guide that is of course experienced, knowledgeable, passionate, and also good fit for the type of travelers that you have. So you should also match the right tour with the right tour guide. Not just one tour guide might be a good tour guide for one specific tour, but not for another type. So it's important to choose the right one. And also make sure that the tour company is really checking the fitness of the travelers. We have so many. We have a lot of. We have mostly elderly people, and It's important that they understand that they need to be mobile, they need to be able to walk stairs, they need to be able to walk a certain amount of kilometers per day, depending on the itinerary. So, and the ones selling the tour, they should be very strict about this. It's in everybody's best interest not to allow people who, especially for the older travelers, it will be a big annoyance. And it happens all the time, that there are people unfit to travel on this tour who are somehow ending up on the tour. So this is the first step. This is the sales step. And then we get to the execution of the trip. We should make sure the guide is well prepared. That he understands the itinerary and why the itinerary is done in a specific way. Why we chose that hotel, because there's always a client asking, why are we staying here, why not in another one? And then the guide should not be telling, yeah, I also like the other one better, I don't know what the company was thinking. They should understand the reasoning, and they should be able to explain why the itinerary is done in that way. And of course, it's a feedback loop. So ideally, in the end, they will provide the feedback to the company, and then the itinerary can be adjusted according to the feedbacks of the guide as well. So the guide should also be involved in the itinerary building process initially. And then, if possible, so some companies, again, it depends on the company how they do it. Some companies, the guides get in touch with the tourists in advance, they introduce themselves, they ask them about, they send them a letter, they tell them how to get prepared for the trip, and ask them about some special interests. Nowadays, personalization is it's a big topic. So even on the group tour, people expect nowadays that their personal interests will be taken into account in some way or another, especially in smaller group tours. And big group tours are not really, less and less important nowadays with Western tourists, I mean. And if not, then if they don't have a chance, the guide, to talk with them in advance, then at least during he should do a good welcome briefing, which he should do anyway. Like the welcome briefing, it's in my opinion, it's the most important element of this expectation management process, because some people might read the itinerary, some people might not. If it's a couple, one person has read it and has decided to book it, but the partner just comes along. But it doesn't mean, but they still have their own expectations. So just make sure that it's a long tour, and you can easily take 45 minutes up to an hour for a welcome briefing. That's not a problem at all. So don't rush the welcome briefing. Make sure to explain carefully all these different topics that are listed here. Introduce yourself, let them introduce themselves, their expectations, their motives, how they decided to come to Central Asia. Discuss the itinerary, the accommodations, including the possible, discuss all the things about accommodations, about the transport, about food, water, alcohol, health, about smoking rules, about money, how it works with the money exchange. People have a lot of questions about that, how to exchange back. Tips, how that works. It's better to talk about stuff than just to, for example, tips. It's better to talk about it right away, like to explain that it's not compulsory, but to give them some kind of guideline. Again, it depends on the company policy. And the toilets, toilets are one of the big problems as well. Internet, people always ask where will we have Wi-Fi, how should we get a SIM card or not. Some people, they still like to send postcards, so they ask for stamps and how to do that. Photography, if there's some photography, there are sometimes rules what you can and what you cannot take photos of, and just in general, explain to them to always ask permission to take a photo, which this kind of rule, and how to dress. So all kinds of these topics should be properly explained. And when you explain to this, sometimes questions come up. So give them time to ask questions, and then you also get an idea of where possible misconceptions are, and you can address them before the tour starts. At the welcome briefing, you can inform the local company if there's any problems, and you can take action before it's too late. So the welcome briefing is really important. And then during the tour itself, you also have the daily briefings. They are shorter. In the evening, you can explain about the next day, what to dress, what weather to expect, what activities, what timing. Always talk about timing. And the farewell briefing, it's also good. And the farewell briefing, at the end of the tour, it's different. You don't talk about the challenges anymore, obviously, but you focus on the positives. So you ask them, what are the highlights of the trip? So you want to end the trip on a positive note. You want to ask them what surprised you most. You let everybody share their highlights, and that way people will also think about the highlights again and remember the highlights. Yeah. And usually it's a good idea to have a WhatsApp group to make sure, for example, if somebody gets lost, you can just, the person can write where are you guys in the WhatsApp group, or just also share there, like the itinerary for the next day, every evening. In my case, for example, I also like WhatsApp groups because it's not only the guide in the group, but I'm also in the group. So for me, it's also, without having to ask the guides all the time how it's going, what's up, I can see immediately by the way people react to each other, by the way, what they write in the WhatsApp group, I can get an idea of how the tour is going. So that's very nice for me too, and also seeing the pictures. And it's a good idea. People need to be feeling comfortable with the guide to be able to say if they have any problems. Sometimes people are not happy with something, but they don't say anything. That's a big problem. So we should really try to make sure that everybody feels comfortable. And one way to do this is also to spend time with, like 10 minutes with each person per day, one-to-one, for example. That also helps, because sometimes when with the whole group they don't want to say anything, but if they're just with you, maybe, and you can also ask them questions. Don't be afraid to ask how happy they are. And check the vehicles every day. So these are things, in my opinion, all very important things that you can do to manage the expectations during the trip. And then after the tour, usually the guide doesn't give the feedback form himself, but they get it electronically from the company. So, but the guide should encourage people to give the feedback to the company. Usually there are two kind of feedbacks. There's a feedback internally for the company, and there's a possibility for them to leave a public review. So of course, in the internal feedback, we would want them to be as honest as possible, so we can learn from the clients and improve the itinerary, and just understand where possible misconceptions are, so we can explain them better next time. And also, it's important for the local companies to ask the feedback from the guide. And if the local company doesn't ask you for the feedback, just anyway suggest to give them feedback. It's also, sometimes they also forget to ask for the feedback, but then I appreciate when guides are proactive in the communication. So the whole idea is to get like a positive feedback loop, to make continuous changes to the itinerary, not just to the itinerary, but also to the communication, to the preparation, to all the preparation documents around the itinerary. So people know what to expect. And just quickly, the private tour, oh wow, so, takes a long time. The private tour is a little bit different because with the private tour we can really provide a detailed itinerary that's perfect for this specific guest, exactly according to their wishes. But to do that, we need to know their wishes, what they want. Sometimes, usually, people when they send me a request, they say, "Oh, just send me a program, a private tour, a couple for 10 days to Uzbekistan." And that's not very helpful because I need to, then I need to ask them many questions to try to understand them as well as possible. Sometimes they also say, "Can we do the same itinerary as the group tour, but there's a private tour?" I say, "Yes, you can, but also we can make any changes to the itinerary because depending on your interest, depending on the season when you travel, depending on the weekdays, dates. So it's also we need to let them know that it's possible to make changes, and that way they will be more happy. In general, the feedbacks from the private tours are much. Well, I mean, the feedbacks are always mostly positive, but from private tours they're more positive because we can do the itinerary exactly as they want on the exact dates that they want, and also because people get along well with each other. They know each other, the people on the private tour. Because obviously that's also a big problem in the group tours, that sometimes people argue with each other, which is difficult to, yeah. So here, just an idea, just an example, a little example of emails that I get all the time. We are looking at a trip to this country, 16 days. So then, when they ask like this, then I would get back to them. I would ask them questions, not just what you're interested in, but like, are you interested in that or that? So they don't just say, I want to see the highlights, because what is highlights? Is it the historic sites? Is it the natural highlights? There's a difference. And physical activities, what kind of accommodations, yeah. And the timing also, it's not clear. Do they want to include the flights or not in the timing? And yeah, that way you can also quickly, that takes like 5-10 minutes, so you can immediately reply to them. It's much quicker as well than just to write a detailed itinerary immediately. And so here, just like some feedbacks that show that it's really important to understand their expectations, and to make sure that the trip matches their expectations. Some people say talk about under-promise, over-deliver. I don't like it so much because I don't think it's necessarily about. I don't like the idea of under-promising. We should be proud of what we're selling. We should tell them what to expect, and we don't want to scare them off with telling negative things, but we should just be realistic. We should, and people, even if you're, yeah, I mean, people always expect that you are more positive than it is in reality. When it comes to pictures as well, by the way, I mean, yes, the pictures, they look more beautiful in the brochure, but people are very much used to that. I mean, if you go to a McDonald's, people are not stupid. If you go to a McDonald's and you see the poster, it looks, the Big Mac looks very different than if you have it on your plate. So people do understand about that. So the key takeaways: customer satisfaction is a result of teamwork. Teamwork between the guide, between the local tour company, and between the outbound tour operator. According to my experience, it's usually the problem is, or the challenge is, that they are not communicating enough with each other. So yeah, if they all work together well, nobody has time, but if they do that, if they do take the time to do that, then it will work well. And yes, we need to be open and honest. I mean, I know here in Central Asia it's a bit difficult to provide like honest feedback and not take it personal, but we should understand it's not a problem about the quality, it's more a problem about wrong expectations. So it's not, so it's very helpful to get these feedbacks, and it's not a critique of the guide as such. The guide can do an excellent job, but people are unhappy because they have different expectations. So it's not, there's no shame for the guide to hear negative feedback from the client. And we should appreciate feedbacks and not be scared of them. So, and be curious about the devils. Like, really try to understand them, try to ask them questions, dig into the, yeah. So just try to understand what their expectations are. Yeah, so this is just from my experience. If you like tips about how to manage the expectations of travelers in Central Asia. Do you have any questions? Yeah.
You mentioned that you work with elderly customers.
Yeah.
How do they approach you? Do they use like online tools? Or
yes, so
do you publish in some newspapers maybe?
No. We try to do that, but yeah, print media for us it doesn't work. We sell online, and we get clients 80 years old, 85 years old sometimes. My experience is that nowadays it doesn't matter how old people are, everybody is able to book online. They pay with credit card, so everything is online. And if possible, I try to talk to them, arrange a Zoom meeting. And also I work with travel agents, like international tour operators, so they have their own groups of people that they send here. But it's all online for us.
So,
Yeah.
you know, like they had a dream to visit Central Asia for maybe 5 years, 10 years. It was their dream trip, yeah. And then it's the first day, and the tour leader makes the group meeting. And if you tell everything like in details, or rooms will be like this, we have bed facilities, all these things. Will you not ruin their trip, like, you know, the first day, and then you tell everything, oh, we have like very bad roads, and this. What do you think? Like?
No, I wouldn't be afraid of that, because that would, well, first of all, they should be, ideally they should be prepared for that, because in the trip documentation that they received, they should be mentioning of all this. They should not expect a 5-star hotel and then you tell them they will stay in a simple guest house. I mean, it should be consistent, obviously, with the documents that they got. And also, I'm not saying that you should only talk about the negatives. You should talk about the positives as well, obviously, and just explain the challenges and explain also what you are doing about it. Like you say, yeah, the roads are bad, but it's a very scenic road, and you will make many stops to take photos, and just explain what you're doing to make it to work with these challenges. Yeah. And if people are not happy, they will ask you, a follow-up question, and then you can, explain more detailed and. Any other questions? I'm just curious, are you mostly guides or tour operators? How many of you are guides? And how many are tour operators? Okay. That's a very good mix here, I guess.
It's 2 o'clock anyway.
Yeah, so let's have some talk. Thank you very much.